Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the empty space above Earth through the main viewing screen. His coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago, but he had not noticed. Today was the day that would change everything. For humanity, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Commander Lisa Park checked her tactical displays for the 100th time that morning. The numbers had not changed. Earth's defenses looked pitiful compared to what was coming. Admiral called Lieutenant Bobby Chin from the communications station. "We're getting readings on the edge of the system." Morrison set down his coffee cup and walked to the center of the bridge. "Show me." The main screen changed to display sensor readings from the outer solar system. 3 massive shapes were moving toward Earth. They were still far away. But the computer was already calculating their size and speed. "Sir," Lisa said, her voice tight, "those ships are huge. Each one is almost 2 kilometers long." Morrison nodded. He had been expecting this day for months. Ever since the deep space monitoring stations had first detected the approaching fleet. The government had kept it secret from the public, but everyone in the military knew Earth was about to have visitors. "How long until they reach Earth orbit?" Morrison asked. "At their current speed, about 6 hours, Chen replied. Morrison turned to face his crew. These were good people, trained for war but hoping for peace. They all knew what the approaching ships meant. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. "All stations prepare for first contact protocols," Morrison ordered, "and get me a direct line to Earth Command." The hours passed slowly. The alien ships continued their approach, making no attempt to hide themselves. As they got closer, Earth's sensors could see more details. The hulls of the ships seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to focus on directly. Strange patterns covered their surfaces, possibly weapons or sensor arrays. Dr. Helen Carter watched from the underground command center in Colorado. She was Earth's top expert on the possibility of alien life, though until today it had all been theory. Now she was looking at 3 ships that proved life existed beyond Earth. "They're beautiful," she whispered to her assistant, Dr. Mark Johnson. "Look at those hull designs. Engineering must be incredible." Mark was less impressed by the beauty. "They're also armed. Look at those energy readings. Those aren't cargo." Helen nodded. The approaching vessels were clearly warships. Their weapon systems were unlike anything humans had ever built. Energy readings showed power levels that could destroy cities. As the alien fleet entered Earth's orbit, every military base on the planet went to high alert. Fighter jets scrambled from bases around the world. Naval vessels moved to defensive positions. Missile defense systems powered up and tracked the alien ships. But everyone knew the truth. If these visitors wanted to destroy Earth, there was very little humanity could do to stop them. The alien ships took positions in a perfect triangle formation above Earth. They were close enough now that people on the ground could see them as bright points of light in the sky. The news networks were going crazy. But the government had not yet made any official statements. Then the aliens began to speak. Every radio, television, and communication device on Earth suddenly carried the same signal. The voice that came through was clearly not human, but the words were in perfect English. "Greetings, primitive humans of the 3rd planet." Morrison felt his jaw tighten at the word primitive, but he remained silent. "We are the hegemony rulers of 47 star systems. Across this region of the galaxy, I am High Admiral Zephok, commander of this fleet." The voice carried a tone that made it clear the speaker thought very highly of themselves. Morrison had heard that tone before from politicians and generals who had never been in a real fight. "Species has been observed and evaluated. We find you adequate for incorporation into our great empire. You will serve as a tributary world, providing resources and labor for the greater good of the hegemony." Around the world, people stopped what they were doing to listen. In homes, offices, and schools, humans heard the words that would define their future. They were being offered slavery disguised as protection? To demonstrate the futility of resistance, we will now show you the power of hegemony technology. The lead alien ship began to glow with energy. Massive weapon systems extended from its hull like the spines of some deep-sea creature. The other 2 ships did the same. their weapons tracking targets in the asteroid belt. Watch and understand your new reality, Zepho continued. The first energy beam lanced out from the lead ship. It was beautiful and terrible, a column of pure plasma that stretched across millions of kilometers in an instant. When it struck a large asteroid, the rock simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was a cloud of glowing gas. The demonstration continued for 2 hours. The aliens destroyed asteroid after asteroid, each one larger than the last. They showed off different weapon systems, each more devastating than the previous one. Plasma cannons that could melt through anything, particle beams that could slice a mountain in half, force fields that could deflect nuclear weapons. Dr. Carter recorded everything from the command center. The alien technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had developed. Their power systems alone were beyond human understanding. They could destroy every major city on Earth in minutes, she reported to the military commanders. Our best weapons would barely scratch their hulls. Admiral Morrison watched the display from the bridge of the Defiant. His ship was Earth's most advanced warship, but compared to the alien vessels, it might as well have been made of wood and canvas, Commander. Lisa Park stood beside him, watching the destruction in the asteroid belt. Sir, what are we going to do? Morrison did not answer immediately. He was thinking about something his grandfather had told him years ago. The old man had fought in World War II and had seen impossible odds before. Sometimes, his grandfather had said, the enemy shows you their strength to make you afraid. But when someone is showing off, they're usually hiding something too. The alien demonstration finally ended. High Admiral Zephic's voice returned to every communication device on Earth. You have seen our power. Resistance is not only futile, it is pointless. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop our attacks. We offer you life as servants of the hegemony. The alternative is complete destruction. Morrison noticed something in the alien's tone. Zepho sounded absolutely certain that humans would surrender. There was no doubt in his voice, no consideration that Earth might refuse. You have 72 hours to deliver your surrender. Choose wisely, humans. This offer will not be repeated. The communication ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Around the world, leaders gathered in emergency meetings. Military commanders reviewed their options and found them all hopeless. Scientists studied the alien technology and concluded that resistance was impossible. But Admiral Morrison was thinking about his grandfather's words. The aliens had put on quite a show, but shows were meant to impress an audience. What were they trying to hide? He turned to Lisa Park. Commander, I want a complete analysis of everything we just saw. Look for weaknesses, inconsistencies, anything that doesn't make sense. Sir, with respect, did you see what they just did? They vaporized asteroids the size of mountains? Morrison smiled grimly. Yes, I saw. But I also noticed they took 2 hours to destroy some rocks. If they're really as powerful as they claim, why did they need so long to put on their show? Lisa looked confused, but she nodded. I'll get the analysis teams working immediately, Morrison. Walk to the communications station. Chen, get me a secure channel to Earth Command. Tell them Admiral Morrison has some questions about our guests. As the bridge crew worked, Morrison stared out at the alien ships hanging in Earth's orbit. They were impressive, certainly. Powerful beyond anything humans had ever built. But something about the whole demonstration felt wrong. His grandfather had been right about one thing. When someone was showing off, they were usually trying to hide something. Morrison intended to find out what the hegemony was hiding. The countdown had begun. Had 72 hours to surrender or face destruction. But Admiral Jake Morrison was not ready to give up just yet. He had a feeling that humanity might have a few surprises of its own. The 72-hour deadline was almost up. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the same position on the bridge of the UES Defiant, but everything had changed. His crew worked with quiet efficiency, carrying out orders that would have seemed impossible. 3 days ago, Captain Roy Bennett joined Morrison at the center of the bridge. Bennett was Earth's best diplomat, a man who could negotiate peace treaties and trade deals with equal skill. But today he was here as a soldier, not a diplomat. Are you ready for this, Roy? Morrison asked quietly. Bennett straightened his uniform and nodded. I've been practicing the speech for 12 hours straight. Let's see how well these aliens handle a surprise. Commander Lisa Park looked up from her tactical station. Admiral, all stations report ready. The analysis teams have finished their work. Morrison had barely slept in 3 days. His teams had worked around the clock, studying every second of the alien demonstration. What they had found was interesting. It's very interesting. What did we learn about our guests? Morrison asked. Lisa called up the data on her screen. Several things, sir. First, their weapons are powerful, but they're energy-based. They need time to charge and cool down between shots. Second, their ships are big, but not very maneuverable. Third, and most important, their sensors are designed to detect energy signatures in electronic systems. Morrison smiled. Don't they detect? Anything that doesn't use advanced electronics or emit energy signatures. Their sensors would miss anything using basic mechanical or chemical systems. Lieutenant Bobby Chen spoke up from communications. Sir, the aliens are hailing us. Hi, Admiral Zephoke, wants Earth's answer. Morrison nodded to Bennett. Open the channel, Bobby. Let's give them our response. The main screen flickered and showed. The interior of the alien flagship. High Admiral Zephoke appeared, a tall creature with blue-gray skin and large eyes. His uniform was covered in symbols that probably showed his rank and achievements. Behind him, other aliens worked at stations. That looked more like art than technology. Humans, Zephoke said, his voice carrying the same arrogant tone as before. Your time is up. Have you prepared your surrender? Admiral Morrison stepped forward. Hi, Admiral Zephoke. I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy. We have considered your offer carefully. Good. You have made the wise choice. Resistance would have been pointless. Morrison's smile grew wider. Actually, we must respectfully decline your generous offer. Humanity chooses to remain free. The alien's large eyes blinked in surprise. Behind him, other aliens stopped their work to stare at the screen. Clearly, they had not expected this response. Impossible, Zephoke said. You have seen our power. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Surrender is your only option. You're right about our technology, Morrison agreed. We do use primitive weapons and basic propulsion systems, but you might be surprised what humans can do with primitive technology when we put our minds to it. Captain Bennett stepped forward. Hi, Admiral. We'd like to show you something. Get a demonstration of our own, if you will. The aliens on the screen began talking among themselves in their own language. Their voices sounded confused and slightly worried. One of them, probably, a science officer, was showing Zephoke readings from their sensors. Your sensors have been studying our planet for 3 days, Morrison continued. What have you learned about our military capabilities? Zephoke regained his composure. We have analyzed every satellite, every ship, every weapon system you possess. Your most advanced warship carries projectile weapons that fire metal slugs. You still use chemical rockets for most of your space travel. Some of your aircraft still use internal combustion engines. All true, Morrison admitted. You're quite primitive by your standards. Then why do you refuse to surrender? Do you wish us to demonstrate our power on your cities instead of empty asteroids? Morrison's expression became serious. Hi, Admiral. Let me ask you a question. Long have you been watching our planet? We've revealed ourselves when we chose to do so. Your primitive sensors could not have detected our approach. Actually, that's where you might be wrong. Morrison nodded to Lieutenant Amy Rogers at the sensor station. Amy, please show our guests the tracking data. Rogers called up a display that made the aliens go very quiet. It showed the movement of 3 ships through the solar system, starting from a point far beyond Pluto. The tracking data went back 6 months. You see, Morrison explained, we've been watching you since you've entered our solar system. Your stealth technology is very impressive. It hides you from energy-based sensors and electronic detection systems perfectly. Zephoke's voice was no longer confident. How did you detect us? Gravity Morrison said simply. Your ships have mass, and mass affects space-time. We've been using gravitational wave detectors for decades to study black holes and neutron stars. Turns out they also work quite well for tracking large objects moving through space. Chief Science Officer Dan Walsh spoke up from his station. The gravitational signatures were subtle, but once we knew what to look for, tracking your approach was relatively simple. Aliens were clearly disturbed by this news. They had spent months approaching Earth, confident that they were undetected. Learning that humans had been watching them the entire time changed everything. Even if you detected our approach, Zefok said, you could not have prepared adequate defenses in such a short time. 6 months is quite a long time when you're properly motivated, Morrison replied. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When we learned that potentially hostile aliens were approaching Earth, we became very inventive very quickly. Captain Sue Edwards, monitoring alien communications, looked up from her station. Sir, they're talking among themselves. Their internal communications show significant concern about what they're calling unusual human resourcefulness. Morrison nodded. Hi, Admiral. Your species has obviously mastered faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and advanced materials. These are impressive achievements, but you designed your technology for fighting other species like yourselves. What do you mean? You expect your enemies to use energy weapons, electronic systems, and advanced materials. Your stealth technology hides you from sophisticated sensors. Your shields deflect energy attacks. Your tactics assume your opponents will fight the way you fight. Bennett stepped forward again. But humans don't fight the way you fight. We're not advanced enough to build energy weapons that can match yours. You can't create shields that deflect plasma beams. So we had to get creative. The aliens were listening carefully now. Their arrogance was being replaced by something that looked very much like worry. Spent 3 days studying our technology, Morrison continued. But you never studied human history. If you had, you would have learned something very important about our species, which is humans are very good at fighting enemies who are bigger, stronger, and better equipped than we are. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Walked closer to the screen. Let me tell you about human military philosophy. Hi, Admiral. When we face a superior enemy, we don't try to match their strengths. We find their weaknesses and exploit them. Our ships have no weaknesses, Zefok declared, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Every system has weaknesses, Morrison replied. The key is knowing where to look. You've shown us ships that are powerful, but slow. Weapons that are devastating but require time to charge. Sensors that are sophisticated but designed for specific types of detection. Lieutenant Commander? Amy Rogers spoke up. Sir, I'm detecting increased power usage from the alien ships. It looks like they're charging their weapons systems. Morrison didn't seem concerned. Aye, Admiral, are you planning to attack Earth? If you continue to refuse our generous offer, we will be forced to demonstrate our resolve. I see. Before you do that, there's something else you should know. Morrison's smile returned. You asked how we could prepare adequate defenses in 6 months? The answer is that we didn't. Zefok looked confused. What do you mean, we didn't prepare? Our defenses in 6 months. Hi, Admiral. We've been preparing them for much longer than that, Captain Bennett explained. Humans have been thinking about the possibility of alien contact for over a century. We've written books about it, made movies about it, and yes, made plans for it. Some of those plans assumed friendly contact, Morrison continued. Others assumed hostile contact. The military has contingency plans for dozens of different scenarios. Your arrival simply activated one of those plans. Plan 7, to be specific, Bennett added. First contact with technologically superior hostile aliens. The aliens on the screen were now talking rapidly among themselves. Their earlier confidence had completely disappeared, replaced by obvious concern about what humans might have prepared. You're bluffing, Zefok said, but he didn't sound sure. Morrison shook his head. Hi, Admiral. Humans don't bluff about survival. When our species is threatened, we respond with everything we have. We've had a lot of time to prepare. He paused, letting that sink in. Now, we'd like to give you a demonstration of our own something to show you what human engineering can accomplish when we're properly motivated. Morrison turned to his crew. Signal Colonel Pete Harris on the lunar platform. Colonel Pete Harris stood in the command center buried deep beneath the surface of the moon. Around him, hundreds of technicians worked at control stations that had been hidden for years. The chamber was enormous, carved out of solid rock and reinforced with the strongest materials Earth could produce. "Colonel Harris," came Admiral Morrison's voice through the communication system. "Are you ready to show our guests what we've been working on?" Harris smiled as he looked at the massive display screens showing the lunar surface above. "More than ready, Admiral. We've been waiting for this day for a long time. For the past 6 months, the aliens had observed what they thought was a simple mining operation on the far side of the moon. They had seen human workers and machines extracting minerals and building basic structures. Their sensors had detected nothing unusual, nothing that would suggest military purposes. They had been completely wrong. "Begin Phase 1, Harris ordered. On the surface above, carefully hidden charges detonated along fault lines that human engineers had spent years preparing. The explosions were small and precise, designed to split the moon's surface along predetermined lines without causing structural damage. Hi. Admiral Zefok watched from his flagship as the moon's surface began to crack and separate. At first it looked like a natural geological event. Then the cracks widened in patterns that were clearly artificial. "What is happening, Zefok?" demanded of his science officers. "Unknown, High Admiral," came the reply. "We're detecting controlled explosions across a wide area of the lunar surface. But our sensors show no military installations there." Keep watching," Zefok ordered. He had a feeling that humans were about to surprise him again. The lunar surface continued to split and separate. Massive sections of rock and soil lifted away, revealing structures underneath that made the alien fleet look small by comparison. What the aliens had thought was empty moon rock was actually carefully constructed camouflage hiding the largest construction project in human history. Admiral Morrison's voice came through the communication channel. "Hi, Admiral. Allow me to introduce you to the Luna construction facility. We've been building it for the past 15 years. The first structure to emerge was a dry dock large enough to hold ships that dwarfed anything in Earth's current fleet. As the camouflage fell away, the aliens could see that the dock was not empty. Inside was a vessel that made their battleships look like small patrol craft. General Kate Johnson, overseeing the operation from her command center on Earth, gave the order to fully reveal humanity's work. All stations remove remaining camouflage. Show them everything. More sections of the lunar surface split open, revealing a complex that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Fusion reactors that had been disguised as geological formations came online, their massive power output lighting up alien sensors. Manufacturing facilities that could produce starships began operating at full capacity. Weapons testing ranges revealed themselves, showing that humans had been developing new technologies for years. But the greatest shock came when the construction bays began launching their products. The U.S. Retribution slid out of its berth like a predator emerging from its den. The ship was nearly 5 kilometers long, its hull dark and angular, designed for function rather than beauty. Unlike the smooth, elegant lines of alien vessels, Retribution looked like it had been built for war and nothing else. Commander Nick Davis, the ship's captain, opened communication with the alien fleet. "Hi, Admiral Zefok. This is Commander Davis of the UES Retribution. Welcome to our solar system." Zefok stared at the human vessel in disbelief. "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected construction of this magnitude." "Your sensors detect energy signatures and electronic emissions," Admiral Morrison explained. "Most of our construction was done using mechanical systems and shielded power sources. We also made sure to schedule the heaviest work when your fleet was on the far side of the system." Dr. Claire Murphy, Earth's chief weapons designer, joined the communication from her laboratory. "Hi, Admiral. Your species has spent centuries perfecting energy weapons and defensive shields. Very impressive technology. But humans have spent the same time perfecting something different, which is making things that break other things very efficiently." As if to demonstrate her point, more ships began emerging from the lunar facilities. Each one was different, designed for specific purposes. Some were clearly built for speed, others for heavy assault. All of them bristled with weapons that the aliens didn't recognize. The alien science officer reported too, Zefok, with increasing alarm. Hi, Admiral. I'm reading massive kinetic weapon systems on those ships. Railguns, mass drivers, projectile systems we've never seen before. Projectile weapons are primitive, Zephok replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Dr. Murphy's laugh came through the communication system. That's what everyone thinks until they see what happens when you accelerate a piece of metal to a significant fraction of light speed. Major Alex Turner, overseeing the manufacturing systems, provided the next shock. Hi, Admiral. You might be interested to know that our automated production facilities can build a destroyer-class vessel every 6 hours. We've been operating at full capacity since we detected your approach. Alien fleet watched and growing. Horror as ship after ship emerged from the lunar complex. Dozens became hundreds. The humans hadn't just built a few warships. They had built an entire fleet. We spent centuries building 3 battleships, Admiral Morrison observed. We spent 6 months building 300 combat vessels. Different approaches to the same problem. Captain Barry Scott's voice joined the communication from his stealth frigate, the UES Ghost. Hi, Admiral. I should mention that our ships have been surrounding your fleet for the past several hours. You might want to check your sensors for low-signature contacts. The aliens frantically scanned the space around their ships. At first, they found nothing. Then their computers began identifying faint gravitational anomalies, heat signatures masked by asteroid debris, and other signs that they were completely surrounded. Stealth technology, Zephok whispered. Not stealth, Captain Scott corrected. Just good old-fashioned camouflage and noise discipline. We learned a long time ago that sometimes the best way to hide is to look like something harmless. The alien fleet had walked into a trap without even realizing it. What they had thought was a primitive world with no assertive defenses had turned out to be a carefully prepared ambush. General Johnson's voice came through the communication system. Hi, Admiral. I should explain our strategy. We realized you were approaching. We had to make a choice. We could try to match your technology, which would take centuries we didn't have. But we could focus on building weapons that would work. Against your technology, your shields deflect energy weapons very effectively, Dr. Murphy added. But they weren't designed to stop large pieces of metal moving at extreme velocities. Your armor can absorb plasma bursts, but it has trouble with kinetic impacts. We also noticed that your ships prioritize offense over maneuverability, Admiral. Morrison continued. They're powerful, but slow. Our ships are smaller and faster, designed to use hit-and-run tactics. The aliens were beginning to understand that they had made a serious mistake. They had assumed that any species capable of space travel would develop along the same technological path they had followed. The idea that humans might take a completely different approach had never occurred to them. But the most important thing, Morrison added, is that every human ship out there is crewed by volunteers. Your intelligence reports probably told you. That Earth's military uses conscription and forced service. That's not true for this fleet. Captain Davis's voice carried pride as he spoke. Every person on these ships chose to be here, High Admiral. We're not fighting because we have to. We're fighting because we want to protect our world and our freedom. Your species fights because you must, Admiral Morrison explained. Humans fight because we choose to. It makes us very, very dangerous. The alien fleet was now completely surrounded by human vessels that they hadn't detected until it was too late. Their technological superiority meant nothing if they couldn't bring their weapons to bear effectively. How? Zephok asked, his voice filled with disbelief. You build all of this so quickly? Dr. Carter, the xenobiologist, provided the answer that would define humanity's place in the galactic community. Hi, Admiral, you've been studying our technology, but you never studied our history. When humans are threatened, we don't just fight harder. We innovate faster. We adapt. We find ways to turn our weaknesses into strengths. You gave us 6 months to prepare, Morrison added. That was more time than we actually needed. Humans have been preparing for this possibility for decades. The revelation hit the alien commander like a physical blow. Earth's apparently primitive. Civilization had been planning for interstellar conflict since before his species had even detected their existence. We thought we were conquering a backward world, Zephok said quietly. Instead, Morrison replied, you found a species that had turned preparation for war into an art form. And we did it all while maintaining our principles. We're not conquerors. Hi, Admiral. We're defenders, but we're very good at it. High Admiral Zefok stared at the display screens showing the human fleet that had appeared around his ships. For the first time in his military career, he was truly afraid. The confidence that had carried him through 47 conquered worlds was gone, replaced by the cold realization that he might have made a fatal mistake. All ships prepare to withdraw, Zefok ordered his fleet. Sir, his navigation officer replied. The humans have blocked all escape routes. We're completely surrounded. Admiral Morrison's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. Hi, Admiral. I wouldn't recommend trying to leave just yet. We'd like to give you a demonstration of our own.
Captain Parker, if you would.
Captain Tony Parker commanded the UES Hammer, one of the smaller ships in the human fleet. His vessel looked primitive compared to the sleek alien battleships. All angles and functional design with none of their elegant curves. With pleasure. Admiral Parker replied. I have a target selected. On the edge of the solar system, a large asteroid tumbled through space. It was roughly the same size as the rocks the aliens had destroyed in their demonstration, but this one had been carefully chosen by human scientists. Hi, Admiral. Dr. Murphy's voice came through the communication system. You showed us energy weapons that can vaporize asteroids. Very impressive. We'd like to show you a different approach to the same problem. The UES Hammer rotated too. Face the distant asteroid. Along the ship's central spine, a massive weapon system began powering up. Like the glowing energy weapons of the alien ships, this system was almost silent. The only sound was a low humming that gradually increased in pitch. Kinetic bombardment, Dr. Murphy explained cheerfully. Call it throwing rocks really fast. So principle is simple. K to dense object, accelerate it to extreme velocity, and let physics do the rest. The alien science officer was monitoring the human weapon. Hi, Admiral. Their weapon system doesn't match any known design. It appears to be some kind of mass accelerator, but the power readings are enormous. Humming from the hammer reached a crescendo, then stopped. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a projectile no larger than a telephone pole emerged from the ship's main gun. The projectile was moving at 12% of light speed. When it struck the asteroid, impact released energy equivalent to a nuclear weapon. But unlike the alien energy beams that had vaporized their targets in bursts of light and heat, the kinetic impact was different. The asteroid didn't just disappear. It exploded outward in a shower of debris, each piece moving fast enough to be a weapon itself. Well, the beauty of kinetic weapons, Dr. Murphy continued, is that they're nearly impossible to defend against. Your shields work wonderfully against energy attacks, but they were never designed to stop solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Zefok's tactical officer was studying the weapon's performance with growing alarm. Sir, that projectile punched straight through where our shields would be most effective. The impact energy exceeded anything in our defensive calculations. Admiral Morrison's voice carried a note of professional respect. Your energy weapons are impressive, Hi, Admiral, but they require enormous amounts of power, complex focusing systems, and time to recharge. Our kinetic weapons are simpler. Point, shoot, and let the universe do the work. The demonstration continued with other human innovations that the aliens had never considered. Commander Linda Hayes revealed the fleet's electronic warfare capabilities. From her ship, the UES Phantom, she began systematically interfering with alien systems. Hi, Admiral, Hayes called out. You might notice that your communications are becoming unreliable. Zefok tried to contact his other ships and found that the signals were being jammed or redirected. His advanced communication systems, designed to work across interstellar distances, were being defeated by human technology he couldn't even detect. How are you doing this? Zefok demanded. Quantum interference, Hayes replied. We can't match your communication technology, so we found ways to disrupt it instead. Your systems use quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication. We developed methods to break those entangled connections. Lieutenant Colonel Greg Foster demonstrated humanity's swarm tactics from his carrier ship, the UES Hornet. Thousands of small drones poured out of launch bays hidden throughout the human fleet. Each drone was tiny, barely the size of a fighter craft, but they moved together like a living organism. Individual drones are no threat to your ships, Foster explained as the swarms surrounded the alien vessels. But 10,000 of them working together can overwhelm any targeting system. Your weapons are designed to destroy large targets, not clouds of small ones. The alien point defense systems tried to engage the drone swarms but quickly became overloaded. The drones moved in complex patterns, making targeting difficult while mapping every detail of the alien ship's defenses. Each drone is expendable, Foster continued. We can build them faster than you can destroy them. While your weapons are busy with the drones, our real ships can position themselves wherever they need to be. Captain Sue Edwards, monitoring alien communications from her intelligence ship, reported increasing panic throughout the enemy fleet. Sir, they're trying to coordinate a response, but our jamming is preventing effective communication between their ships. The most disturbing revelation for the hegemony came when they realized that every human ship was crewed by volunteers who seemed to genuinely enjoy their work. The aliens had expected to face conscripted soldiers fighting because they had no choice. Instead, they found themselves facing enemies who had chosen to be there. Your crew efficiency reports show forced compliance, Admiral Morrison observed, studying data his ships had gathered from alien transmissions. Our crews are here because they want to be. That makes a significant difference in combat effectiveness. Captain Davis of the UES Retribution added his own perspective. My people have been training for this day for years, not because they were ordered to, but because they believe in what we're fighting for. You can't buy that kind of motivation. The alien fleet attempted to regroup and present a united front, but the human ships had positioned themselves perfectly to prevent effective coordination. Every time the aliens tried to concentrate their forces, human vessels appeared to block their movements. How did you predict our tactics? Zefok asked, frustration clear in his voice. We studied your previous conquests, Admiral Morrison replied. Your species follows predictable patterns. You rely on superior technology, an overwhelming force to intimidate your enemies into surrender. When that doesn't work, you tend to panic. Dr. Carter, monitoring the exchange from Earth, provided additional insight. Your military doctrine assumes that all spacefaring species will develop similar technologies and tactics you've never faced. An enemy that deliberately chose a different path. We learned from your example, Morrison continued. Energy weapons, advanced shields, faster than light travel, all very impressive, but also very predictable. We knew that if we tried to match your strengths, we would lose, so we focused on exploiting your weaknesses instead. The human demonstration reached its climax when Captain Walter Stone of the UES Thunder revealed humanity's most devastating capability. His ship began charging a weapon system that dwarfed anything the aliens had seen. Hi, Admiral Stone announced. This is our planetary defense cannon. It was designed specifically to destroy ships like yours. The weapon that emerged from the Thunder was enormous. A railgun nearly a kilometer long that ran the entire length of the ship. The power requirements were so massive that the other human ships had to provide additional energy through transfer beams. The projectile weighs 50 tons, Dr. Murphy explained. When it reaches 20% of light speed, the impact energy approaches that of a small star-going supernova. Your ships might survive one hit. They won't survive two. Aliens watched in horror as the massive weapon tracked their flagship. They could see the power building, the magnetic fields aligning, the projectile being positioned for launch. Zepho called out. We surrender. We withdraw our demand for Earth's submission. Admiral Morrison considered this for a moment. Hi, Admiral. I appreciate the offer. But you came here to demonstrate your power and demand our surrender. We're demonstrating our power. It seems only fair that we complete our demonstration. Please, Zepho said, his voice barely above. A whisper, we understand. Humanity's not the primitive species we thought you were. Morrison smiled grimly. No, we're not. We're something much more dangerous. We're a primitive species that's very good at learning. The human fleet held their positions, weapons trained on the alien ships. The demonstration had achieved its purpose. The hegemony now understood exactly what they were facing. The question now, Morrison said, is what happens next. Do you still think conquest is a viable option? Hi, Admiral Zephic's pride finally cracked completely. The alien commander who had arrived at Earth 3 days ago, expecting easy conquest now, faced the reality that his fleet was completely outmatched. But desperation made him dangerous. Ships, Zephoc ordered his fleet. Target the human homeworld directly. If we cannot rule them, we will destroy them. The flagship's main weapon began charging, its energy readings climbing to levels that could crack a planet's surface. The other 2 alien battleships followed suit, their plasma cannons focusing on Earth itself. Admiral Morrison watched the alien weapons charge without apparent concern. Hi, Admiral. Are you sure you want to do that? Your ships cannot reach? Us before our weapons fire, Zephoc replied, his voice filled with desperate anger. Earth will burn, and your demonstration will mean nothing. The alien weapons reached full charge. 3 massive plasma beams lanced toward Earth, carrying enough energy to destroy continents. For a moment, it seemed like the aliens would have their revenge even in defeat. Then the beams simply stopped. The plasma streams struck something in space between the alien fleet and Earth. Instead of continuing to the planet's surface, the energy hung in space for several seconds, writhing like living things. Then it dissipated harmlessly, leaving no trace that it ever existed. What happened? Zephoc demanded of his science officers. Unknown, sir. Our weapons fired normally, but the energy was somehow contained and dispersed before reaching the target. Dr. Murphy's cheerful voice came through the communication system. Did I forget to mention our orbital defense grid? Sorry about that. I've been working on practical applications for some very interesting physics theories. Admiral Morrison explained while the alien fleet tried to understand what they had just witnessed. Hi, Admiral. Your energy weapons work by accelerating charged particles and focusing them into coherent beams. It's very effective against most targets. But what if you could manipulate the space those particles travel through? Dr. Murphy added. Turns out if you can create localized gravitational fields, you can redirect energy attacks wherever you want them to go. The reflected energy from the alien weapons had overloaded their own ship's systems. Emergency power kicked in throughout the alien fleet as their main systems went offline. Captain Rachel Stone, monitoring alien communications, reported that the situation was getting worse for their enemies. Sir, they're receiving urgent transmissions from their homeworlds. Multiple human ships have appeared in hegemony space. Admiral Morrison smiled. Admiral, while you were focused on Earth, we took the liberty of following your communication signals back to their sources. Our deep space fleet is currently visiting your home systems. The aliens' worst fears were being realized, while they had been threatening one human world. The humans had managed to threaten all of theirs. Commander Bill Rogers leading the deep Space Reconnaissance Force joined the communication from the Hegemony Capital System. Admiral Morrison, this is Commander Rogers reporting from the Hegemony homeworld. The locals seem very interested in our peaceful intentions. Hey, how many ships? Do you have their bill? Morrison asked. Just 12, sir. But they're getting very respectful treatment. Turns out our kinetic weapons work just as well here as they do in our solar system. High Admiral Zephoc stared at the communication display in disbelief. How did you reach our world so quickly? You don't have faster-than-light travel. Actually, we do, Dr. Murphy replied. Just don't use it the same way you do. Your ships are fast but noisy. They announce themselves across half the galaxy when they jump. Our ships are slower, but much quieter. We've been studying your faster-than-light technology since we first detected your approach, Admiral Morrison added. It took our scientists about 4 months to figure out how to build our own version. Took them another month to make it undetectable. The revelation that humans had developed faster-than-light travel in months, when it had taken the hegemony centuries, was perhaps the most shocking discovery yet. Everything the aliens thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. You've been planning this for much longer than 6 months, Zephoc said quietly. Dr. Carter. The xenobiologist provided the truth that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of humanity. Hi, Admiral. Humans have been preparing for possible alien contact since the mid-20th century. We've written thousands of books about it, made countless movies, and developed dozens of contingency plans. Some of those plans assumed peaceful contact, Morrison continued. We have protocols for trade, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation. Other plans assumed hostile contact. You triggered Plan 7, first contact with technologically superior hostile aliens. Captain Bennett added, Plan 7 has been updated and refined for decades. It includes everything from initial defense strategies to long-term diplomatic solutions. But the most important part of Plan 7, Morrison said, is that it doesn't end with military victory. It ends with a new relationship based on mutual respect. The alien fleet hung in space, their weapons disabled, their communications jammed, and their homeworlds under threat from human ships they had never seen coming. But instead of demanding their surrender, the humans were talking about respect. In new relationships, I don't understand, Zefok said. Your species conquers through fear and superior force, Morrison explained. You've built an empire based on making other species afraid of you. But fear-based relationships are unstable. Eventually, someone develops better weapons or finds allies, and your empire falls apart. Humans prefer a different approach, Captain, Bennett added. We believe that voluntary cooperation is more effective than forced submission. Partners work harder than slaves. Dr. Murphy's voice carried genuine enthusiasm. Hi, Admiral. Your species has developed amazing technologies. Faster than light communication, energy manipulation, advanced materials science. We have technologies you've never considered. Imagine what we could accomplish working together instead of fighting. You're offering an alliance? Zefok asked, confusion clear in his voice. We're offering a choice, Morrison replied. You can continue trying to maintain your empire through force, in which case you'll discover that humans take a very dim view of tyranny. Or you can consider a new model of interstellar relations. Commander Rogers' voice came from the hegemony. Capital, Admiral. The local government here is very interested in discussing terms for peaceful coexistence. They seem to understand that their military situation has changed significantly. The message was clear. Human ships were positioned throughout hegemony space, all of them armed with weapons that could destroy alien worlds. But instead of using that power to conquer, they were offering to negotiate. Why? Zefok asked. Why offer peace when you could simply destroy us? 'Cause that's not who we are, Morrison answered simply. Humans fight when we have to, but we prefer to build rather than destroy. War is a tool we use to protect ourselves and others. It's not our goal, Dr. Carter provided the scientific perspective. Hi, Admiral. Conflict is wasteful. Every ship destroyed. Every world damaged. Every life lost represents resources that could have been used for exploration, research, and improvement. War may be necessary sometimes, but it should never be the first choice. Besides, Dr. Murphy added with obvious excitement, your species has been exploring space for centuries longer than we have. There's so much we could learn from each other. Your energy manipulation techniques, combined with our kinetic technologies, could revolutionize space travel. The alien commander was quiet for several minutes, processing everything he had learned. His empire's military superiority was gone. Human ships controlled hegemony space, but instead of conquest, the humans were offering partnership. What would you require? Zefok finally asked. First, immediate cessation of all conquest activities, Morrison replied. No more forced submissions, no more tributary worlds. Species that want to leave the hegemony must be allowed to do so. Second, establishment of diplomatic relations between humanity and all hegemony members. We want to talk to everyone, not just your leadership. Third, joint scientific and cultural exchange programs. We have a lot to learn from each other. And finally, Morrison added, mutual defense agreements. If humanity is threatened, we expect hegemony support. In return, if any former hegemony world faces external threats, they can count on human assistance. Zefok considered the terms. They were far more generous than anything he would have offered if their positions were reversed. The Hegemony Council will need to approve any such agreements, he said. Of course, Morrison agreed. Take all the time you need. Our ships will remain in position until we reach an understanding. The communication ended, leaving both fleets facing an uncertain but hopeful future. The galaxy had changed forever in just 3 days. The hegemony's age of conquest was over, replaced by the possibility of genuine cooperation between species. Admiral Morrison looked out at the alien ships. It's no longer enemies, but potential partners in exploring the universe. Humanity had passed its first test as a galactic power, proving that strength didn't have to lead to tyranny. The stars suddenly seemed much more welcoming.